first, we begin with the start of summer and the start of hurricane season. The national forecast is out, and TV 1055's Vanessa Murdoch explains what's being predicted.
With one named storm under our belt already, Tropical Storm Anna, it's past time to start thinking about the 2015 hurricane season.
This is most importantly just the reminder to us all that we're on the doorstep of the Atlantic season. And we've got to be ready for whatever comes.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration put out their seasonal forecast. The expectation is a below-average season with 6 to 11 tropical storms. 3 to 6 storms will become hurricanes with sustained winds of 74 miles per hour, and up to 2 major hurricanes with winds of at least 111 miles per hour. A buildup of warm water in the Pacific, a phenomenon known as El Niño, is paving the way for a below-average season. El Niño suppresses hurricane formation by increasing wind shear, which basically tears hurricanes apart. Normal sea surface temperatures should play a role too.
Not as warm as they were the last couple years, so less energy from the ocean helping to drive storms as well.
New York City Emergency Management says about half of the Big Apple residents have taken steps to prepare for emergencies, but far fewer are ready for hurricanes. Only 16% of us know our risk level for hurricanes, or if they even live in an evacuation zone. Fewer than 1 in 5 have an evacuation plan.
No matter how many pitches Mother Nature throws at us, from only a few to a whole lot, if just one of those pitches gets through the strike zone, we can be in for a lot of trouble. You've got to get that plan ready before the bad events are bearing down on you.
And joining us now to help flesh out this forecast and what it could mean is Gary Conte. He's based at the Upton, Long Island office of NOAA, an acronym standing for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And welcome to the show, Mr. Conte.
Thank you.
I always got to say I love the acronym. Of course, it ties into the old Bible story about Noah and the Great Flood, but you know, it's a story that rings quite modern now with the continuing after effects that we've seen of Superstorm Sandy. And I was just wondering, is that a storm, Superstorm Sandy, that NOAA and your staff are still studying in terms of its strength and its track? Anything new we've learned about that storm?
Well, Sandy was a very unique storm. As it moved toward the area, it maximized storm surge, as everybody knows, and so we all received an education about inundation with Sandy. We are still looking at Sandy and how the Weather Service can basically improve communicating key information so that individuals can save lives and protect property.
And we got to give you some props there, because there was no question that the warnings came out in time. Of course, you dealt with the fact that, you know, nobody wants to believe that. That's changed now, hasn't it?
I think it has. When people actually have an opportunity to experience some of these extreme weather events, like storm surge that they've never experienced before, it does put storm surge on their radar.
All right, let's talk about this year's hurricane forecast. It becomes like a sport or game, you know, predicting whether it was below average or above average and whether or not you get it right. Statistically and historically, I'm wondering, how accurate are these forecasts?
Okay, they do vary. They really do. The seasonal forecasts are actually done by NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. And typically, during an average year, hurricane season goes from June 1 to November 30th, and we get 12 named storms producing winds of at least 39 miles an hour, 6 hurricanes and 2 major hurricanes of at least Category 3 strength or at least 110-mile-an-hour winds.
Well, you know, one of the things we all learned from Sandy is that, you know, these computer models are used to project all the different possible paths, and you're looking at all the currents that run all across the entire, the upper stratosphere, right?
Right. And so the hurricane season outlooks can only be general. They're a measure of how active the season would be across the Atlantic basin. But there are no forecasts, if you go out over that period of time, that can pinpoint whether a system will actually make landfall and where the impacts would be along our coast.
Yes, so how does it help you prepare then? I mean, what is the usefulness of a forecast like this?
The usefulness of it is whether we're predicting a season that's below, near, or above normal, the message is this local area has experienced the impacts from both Irene in 2011, Sandy in 2012, and the message at the start of every hurricane season is take time to prepare. Know what your vulnerabilities are and then take time to prepare.
Yeah, because when the storm hits, nobody's going to be looking at whether or not you predicted it from some model 6 months prior. You know, explain a little bit more about El Nino and why that can create this below average expectation for the Atlantic region.
Sure. El Nino results when the atmosphere above the ocean in the Pacific Ocean actually changes its pattern because of warming of the sea surface temperatures. And in the upper levels of the atmosphere, it causes winds to blow faster from the west. Hurricanes move from the east. So what it does is it cuts off the top of developing thunderstorms and inhibits the growth of hurricanes. So typically, like this season, we have a moderate to strong El Nino that's forecast during the peak of the season, which means that we're looking at that as an inhibiting type of predictor for the hurricane season.
You know, these once-in-a-century storms, rising sea levels, even Governor Cuomo said it's the new norm and it's something we should expect. But are we better prepared than we were before?
I think because we are looking at more extreme events that are occurring across the area, it's raised eyebrows. And so if we go back to the past 5 years in the New York City metropolitan area, we have set daily precipitation records. Long Island, we have set daily snowfall records, historical records of all time. And so when we start to experience more of these extreme and highly variable events, it is catching people's attention.
Well, whoever thought they'd be talking about things like seawalls in the New York City area, yet that's been a serious conversation. But the thing that happens in all these ideas they talk about is it's enormous cost.
Absolutely. And the National Weather Service works very closely with our New York City Office of Emergency Management in Brooklyn to basically prepare, to help prepare. It's the New York City OEM's role in preparing. As you mentioned, sea level is rising 1 to 2 feet per century, and it's accelerating. So,
yeah,
got to take a look at that.
No question. Mother Nature will get your attention. Thank you very much. Gary Conte with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, headquarters on Long Island. Thanks for the heads up on the hurricane season. I have to admit, we're hoping you folks will have little to track this summer.